Hello and welcome to Gardener's World. You may have noticed that we're somewhere a little bit different. Adam and I are in Norfolk for a rather special programme that's set in the grounds that surround East Ruston Old Vicarage. And it's a private garden that has been lovingly created over the past 50 years.
I think we're in for a great one because we're going to spend some time with Alan Gray and Graham Robeson, the owners, plus the gardeners, some volunteers, and get under the skin of what it takes to put a garden like this together and then look after it for that many years.
And we'll be sharing tips and practical advice along the way. Also, coming up on today's programme, we visit the Peak District as Rekha gets to grips with the challenges of her new garden.
Like many, this year has been blighted with failures. My first and second sowing of squashes were either eaten by slugs or succumbed to cold. This is my third sowing.
We meet a couple from Walsall who have transformed their garden into a lush green oasis.
Our garden's called 50 Shades of Green for obvious reasons.
Yeah. We do love colour.
Yeah, we do love colour, especially green.
Yeah.
And Carol continues her mission to get us all growing plants for free with a masterclass on propagating root and leaf cuttings.
This anemone in its native habitat is a woodland plant. It sends its roots out just under the surface of the soil, and it's that I want to exploit.
I think one of the fascinating things about this place is just the quantity of different garden rooms and carrying slightly different atmospheres.
Well, there's so much to explore. I mean, take this place, the Desert Wash, OK? We're 1.5 miles from the North Sea, about 16 miles from Norwich, yet they've managed to create this Arizona-inspired arid desert because it's so mild and warm.
Yeah, I think rainfall, they have about 20 inches a year. But straight away, what catches your eye is the diversity of plants. It just seems completely mind-blowing.
The Desert Wash Garden is vast. It's set over 2 acres of land and has been designed to resemble a landscape which is dry and arid. But when it rains there is a deluge of water that comes down and causes flash flooding, creating ravines, and rocks get cast aside. And that's what's been represented here. There are giant drought-tolerant plants that are adding to the drama of this landscape alongside 400 tonnes of flint. And can you believe none of these plants are protected over winter?
If you did want to create something like this, the group of plants here that fascinates me are these ones here in front of me. Things like the verbena, the Californian poppy, the verbascums. All the plants that will self-seed around your garden, things like the short-lived perennials, the biennials and the annuals. Plants that years ago I used to think, well, they're hard work, aren't they? They're just going to keep doing their thing, and I've got to go out and I've got to maintain it. Whereas now, they're go-tos. Because of environmental change, and we don't know whether we're going to have a cold spring, a warm spring, a dry spring, a wet spring, some of the plants in your garden, are going to suffer, and you're going to lose mainstays over the coming years. But these, that seed, hit the ground, doesn't really matter to them what sort of spring we have. They always seem to, at some point in the year, pop up and do their work. So for me, these are joyous. I let them do their thing around the garden. They bring a freedom, which I love, and then I go in and I edit. And I think they're a group of plants that we really need to go back and visit. This is an amazing space, and it's just one of many here, which is incredible.
From a bare scrap of land, this garden began 51 years ago when Alan and Graham bought the derelict Old Vicarage, which was built in 1913 during the arts and crafts era. Alan and Graham, without doubt, this garden is a labour of love, and your passion Is this all throughout the whole space?
Well, I think, yes, it is, because we do have a passion for it. We regard the garden, I think, as our kind of sheltered place against the ever more hostile world out there.
Kept me sane all my life, I
Yeah.
think.
And just tell me, how did you start with that blank canvas? What was the sort of starting point?
It's an arts and crafts house, and we wanted to make a garden in sympathy with the architecture of the house, and so therefore we decided to make outside rooms.
And how do you split the gardening now in terms of the role between the pair of you? What do you do? Who does what?
He shouts, "No, run." No, I think you know, we have our roles that we fall into. I mean, Graham's baby is the desert wash, and he's continually working on that.
And I'll design a piece of garden, and there's bare earth, and you can't stand bare earth. It gets planted.
Really?
See,
I think I can agree with you on that, Graham. I'm sort of worried about standing still in case all of a sudden I'm planted up. Well, Adam and I are here today to get involved, so I'm hoping that we can be of some real help to you. Set within the meadows and woodland, there are over 20 garden rooms filled with plants, including the King's Walk, Catalpa Garden, Mediterranean and exotic gardens, to name just a few. And this is known as the dahlia border. And I think it's really wonderful. It's singing out at this time of year. It's full of tender perennials and annuals and some really old-fashioned favourites, like this Phlox Superstar. And then you've got the deep burnt orange of the Tagetes. But then in contrast, you come across this Eucomus, really statuesque, really exotic, completely different. And I think that's the magic of where Graham and Alan love having a real exuberance in the border. But it's September, which means it's a perfect time to take cuttings from tender perennials. And what we've got here is this yellow marguerite. So what I'm looking for are side shoots that haven't got a flower on them. So this one here, just cut above a leaf node. So by popping them in a plastic bag, just helps them to stop drying out and preserve them until they go and get planted up. It's best to take your cuttings early in the morning when the plant is fully hydrated and use the material quickly. So I'm taking this to Alan and Adam, who are waiting to do just that.
The first thing I need to say, wow, what a garden.
Thank you.
How did you get into the gardening?
Oh, well, I'm knee-high to a grasshopper at Granny's house, and I mean, I started gardening maybe by 4, 5, 6, something like that. By the time I was about 8 or 10, I had 3 gardens, one at each grandparent's house and one at my house.
Interesting. So I had my first little plot on Grandad's allotment and with my name written on it.
Yeah,
So
that's so important, isn't it?
yeah, it certainly is.
Yeah.
But I know you do go out and obviously, you know, you like to shop and get the new bits, but also this is a bit of a passion, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And quite often when I buy a plant, I don't buy a plant, I buy 2. One to look at and one to cut up.
Brilliant.
Well, I buy the cutting and seed compost in a bag, and then I mix it with vermiculite, which you can see here.
Which is little clay particles.
Yeah, and that is to actually make it much more free draining, so it stops it getting clagged together. Fill it full, tamp it down like that, give it a jolly good watering, a couple of hours or an hour before you're going to use it, let it drain, and then we're good to go.
Cool. Now, I'm the apprentice. Slightly ageing, admittedly, all right? But you demonstrate the cuttings, and then maybe what I can do, if I've got my pencil, you can pass them over, and then I will...
That's a good idea. Well, here we have cuttings of an Argyranthemum.
Yep.
This one is called Jamaica Primrose. So you take your cutting. I've got a very sharp knife here, clean blade all the time. Hygiene is the most important thing of all, so I mean, that gets cleaned. And then you make your cut just below a leaf node.
Oh, there we go.
You got your leaf node there. Right, remove the lower leaves, and then I do a bit of hairdressing.
Lovely. Yeah, interesting. Because, see, at this point, I would go straight in there. You don't, do you?
Well, put it in. It's a race between rooting and rotting.
Yep, yeah.
I want to win that race.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I like that.
So I'm going to use everything in my power to make that root. So in this hormone rooting liquid,
and
it's over to you.
Over to you. And then we're just going centre of this.
Yeah.
Job done.
and then I put that on a mist bench.
Yeah.
But before it goes to the mist bench, I do this.
Good. So actually you're stopping that loss of water.
Yeah, exactly. That's the most important thing, because once a cutting wilts really, really badly, it's got no way of getting up again.
Yeah.
So you've got to stop it wilting in the first place.
Yeah.
So shall we do a few more of
Yeah,
these?
go on. You carry on. You carry on. Well, what other cuttings would you be taking this time of year?
Anything and everything that is tender perennial. Diascias,
Yeah.
osteospermums.
On that note, how many cuttings do you think you take in a year?
Hundreds, if not thousands, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah, a massive amount. You know, Graham and I, we bought the old vicarage, and you know, it's in the 1970s, two gentlemen sharing with something of a novelty.
Yeah.
You know, there was, shall we say, a degree of interest.
Yeah.
And then somebody came along from the Norfolk Gardens Trust and asked us if we would open our garden for the charity. And we had a rude awakening that day, because I think 1,383 people turned up.
Wow. And you thought how many were going to turn up?
I didn't think anybody bothered to have a look.
Not at all. Was it that sort of went, actually, you know, we've got something here, or was it later on? How did it work?
All these people turned up, and I said to Graham, you know, people are going to come and visit this garden. Let them come.
Yeah.
We'll open one day a week, and it'll help pay for an extra pair of hands. And it did.
Incredible thing to be able to share.
Yeah.
That with...
But that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
That's the last one, is it?
Yeah, it is, man. It is, man. We've done it. Look at that.
Well done. Nice uniform.
Hey? Not bad for an old boy, eh?
No, not bad for an old apprentice.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm here in the vegetable garden. It's a productive space and supplies Alan and Graham with produce all year round. In September, the harvest is plentiful, and the focus turns to crops that will withstand the colder months ahead. I'm planting out oriental greens, which is going to be great in the winter time. They're very hardy and really great in salads. So I've got some taxoi here, and I'm just putting in red mustard, which is actually quite a peppery leaf. I'm going to get some mizuna in as well. These are brassicas, so they are from the cabbage family. And the great thing about them is that they are cut and come again. So through sort of autumn into winter, they're going to be able to keep providing food for the table, which I think is a really lovely idea. They are fast growing, and looking around the rest of this garden, it's a good thing that they are, because they need to catch up with the abundance that's in this space. Next, we visit Rekha in the Peak District and see how she's taken stock of her new vegetable garden after a very challenging season.
It's summer. I'm finally lifting my potatoes, and it's been a very good year for them. These are Charlotte potatoes, second earlies. Normally, you would leave them 15 to 17 weeks before harvesting, but I tend to leave them a little bit longer, just so that we get bigger size. One trick I've learned when growing potatoes is add a layer of leaf mould in the base of your trench before planting the seed potatoes. That provides a lot of moisture to the plant when really needed in the early days, but it also provides them a little bit of acidic soil, which potatoes love. They have romped away this year, one of the few things to love all the rain. But not all things have fared so well. Like many, this year has been blighted with failures. My first and second sowing of squashes were either eaten by slugs or succumbed to cold. This is my third sowing, and I have only 2 squashes left. The one near the house with the extra heat from the walls is the only plant behaving itself. The other is this one. It is struggling after being hit by cold nights. My tomatoes suffered from the same extreme temperature variation. These are beefsteak tomatoes, so they should fit in the palm of my hand. I mean, look at the size of them. But I have to be pragmatic. I have to say that I'm of a very high altitude and on a north-facing slope, and these beauties love heat. It's not all about me. The squashes planted in beds were devoured. Slugs and snails tend to attack weak plants, so I'm wondering if I also have deficiency in my soil that may have contributed. It's not all doom and gloom. There are some things I just won't be able to grow in this climate, this altitude, but there are plenty more that I can. First, I need to take care of my soil, and this is where this comes in. Rather than leaving my soil bare over the winter months, this year I'm sowing green manure. Bare soil can cause soil erosion and wash away the nutrients. This way, the green manure will lock it all in. I've already sown ryegrass, which is a great ground cover, as the roots knit together and protect the soil. Today, I'm going to sow phacelia, which should have time to grow and flower before being knocked back by the frost. These may even have time to self-seed and fill the space in spring, when pollinators are searching for nectar. I also love to sow field beans, which overwinter well and tolerate temperatures down to -10. Not only do the tops and beans taste great, they also fix the nitrogen for next year's crops. In the spring, I will chop back all the green manure, incorporate it back into the soil, and it'll be ready for the next plants to take all the nutrients back in. I've had some surprise wins this year, and I intend to maximize on them. My onions are doing brilliant. Rose de Roscoff that I grew from Save Seed is really doing well. But this year, I'd like to save this one, which is Bedfordshire Champion. Once I've harvested them, they'll go into the greenhouse, dry out, they'll crack open, revealing their little seeds, ready to save in little envelopes for next year. I've already harvested my garlic and it's drying. The variety was chalk white and it has given me a bumper crop. It loved the cool Peak District weather. I'll save a couple of these bulbs to plant again in autumn. Peas and beans have done really well in my pots, but I've decided that this variety, Blauwschokke, I'd like to save seeds from. So what I've done is I've allowed each and every single plant to go to seed, and now I'm just ready to harvest them. I can feel that they're crackling, but also they've lost their colour. They were really deep purple, so now it's time to save them. I'm just going to pop these into a tray, leave them in the greenhouse, allow them to dry off a little bit more, and then they're ready to store for next year. I'm going to continue experimenting too. I'll be sowing my winter salads as well, but how about sowing something different? A pot of carrots. I'm using peat-free compost in a tall pot. The reason why I've chosen that is because the variety I'd like to grow are long and slender. It's called Lunar White. I'll make 3 rows in this pot. And in between my rows, I am going to have spring onion. Now, outside, I tend to grow the two together because they're a great companion plant. The spring onion are very, very strongly scented and they keep carrot fly away. I don't need to really do that because in the winter months, I'm not expecting any pests. The spring onions give me a second crop. It's growing more things in a small space. I'll keep these outside until they have germinated. And as the weather turns, I shall move them into the cold greenhouse. And hopefully, I'll have fresh carrots over winter. Well, that's the plan. For me, gardening is all about experimenting. With successes come some failures, and this year has been one of those years where it has challenged me. I think it has for a lot of us, but us gardeners are made of stronger stuff, and next season can only get better.
Verity Holden Oates is one of the gardeners tasked with developing the vegetable garden and keeping it productive. Verity, I love this frame that you're creating to protect the veg.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's all recyclable. Just keep the pigeons off while these are still young, especially.
Very good idea, I'd say. So how long have you been gardening and been here?
I've been gardening probably about 10 years just at home. And then I started volunteering here about 1.5 years ago. And then, yeah, work came up, so I took it and absolutely loved it ever since.
Well,
yeah.
I have to say it looks amazing here, so you're doing a really, really good job. And there's no dig principle here, isn't there?
Yeah, so we're doing the no dig method. It's new to this particular part of the garden. It's working really well. This year it's been fantastic. The plants have been so healthy. One of the benefits is the no weeds. You will get some finding their way, but the ones that you do get, they come out a lot easier. We had a big chicory problem. We're not getting that anymore. So a lot less work for me.
A lot less work, which is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
So obviously that's not turning the soil over and keeping the soil structure very good.
The water retention's better, the drainage is better. All does lead to higher yield.
Yeah, well, the yield in here, I have to say, looks really amazing. So I think it's definitely working. Do you need some help getting the net over?
Lovely, thank you.
The flowers in this garden, Verity, are just beautiful. They're doing a good job as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so they're going to attract in all the pollinators, like our bees. And we've got things like the garlic chive here, which not only do they look good, they've got a really strong smell that keeps pests away from things that they want to munch on otherwise. So the more flowers you can get in here really, really helps, makes a difference to the biodiversity of the garden.
Yeah, well, that's companion planting for you. It certainly works.
As you move from space to space, the magical thing is the atmosphere changes. Now I'm in the woodland. There's all these wonderful greens and you just want to slow down and there's a real calmness. But at the same time, nothing feels classical. And what I mean by that is if I stop and look up, there's these huge eucalyptus that are just pushing their way up through the undergrowth. They really are incredible. We also think about a woodland garden, especially in this country, as a classic spring space. But look at those. The hydrangeas this time of year look incredible. And they've been given the space to do their own thing. So you've got these various different colours that sort of wallow and move their way through the area. And it's, yeah, it's special. I wasn't expecting that. Feels like you've come through the wardrobe in Narnia and you really have arrived in a different world. Incredible. Now I'm thinking tropics, nice hotel, pina colada. But you've got a big water feature that pulls you in, classic design. And then look behind it. Look at the size of those. That's tetrapanics. If I grew those at home, the first winter, frost, bang, straight back to the ground. I think as well, we come to gardens like this and we walk in a space like this and, yeah, that's all right, because they've got the space. How can I do that at home? But I think you can. A lot of these I would grow in pots. Look here, gingers, bananas, cannas, castor oil plants. There's a fig, tetrapanics. You imagine arranging all those in some nice, maybe terracotta plots. And then we've got things like the salvias, the cosmos, just working their way through and bringing that summer colour. As well, it's worth looking at shapes, forms and finishes. I think this is a garden that Anne-Marie and Andrew Swift from Walsall would definitely approve of.
Andrew and I met online, didn't we? We got together in 2008.
Yes, we did. And we clicked straight away. But the one question I forgot to ask Andrew was, do you like gardening?
Yeah.
So it wasn't until Andrew moved in
That you asked?
that the question came up.
Yeah.
And I said, are you a gardener? Do you like gardening?
Should have seen her face when I said, I've never done any gardening in my life.
I got a little bit precious about the garden then.
Uh-huh.
I'd already been here since '97, so I'd got an established garden, although it was just lawns and borders.
And everywhere I stood on the garden, she said, don't stand there. There's some blood balls under there. Don't stand there.
You tagged on to my interest in it, really,
Yeah.
didn't you? It was almost like, well, if I don't go out in the garden and help and join in,
Yeah.
then we probably weren't going to see each other very often.
It is a shady garden, but we built it with that in mind. We wanted shade. We're not sun worshippers.
We both have a passion for trees, a passion for hostas, and
Ferns.
an enormous passion for
Yeah.
ferns.
We've got over 200 ferns in the garden. This one here is my absolute favourite. This is Ethereum Felix femina. Common name is Dre's dagger. The crisscrossing on it is very unusual. How can nature make something so complicated as that? We love the shade.
Yeah, we do. We like the shade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is another fern that doesn't actually look like a fern. It has a white line down the leaf. The common name on this is Cretan brake.
And what's the Latin name?
Don't ask that. Thanks, Duck. Terrace critica albulinata. Albulinata, white line. Albulinata. Albulinata.
What's the Latin name of this fern?
The Latin name is... Oh, come on! I like to learn them, I just can't remember them. That's why we have so many plant labels. The Latin name of this fern is Terrace critica albulinata.
Who's the head gardener?
Anne-Marie
the head
is
gardener?
definitely the head gardener. Yeah, she tries to play it down and say that she isn't, but she is the head gardener. She's got the most knowledge and experience of us both.
That's very kind of you to say so.
Yeah, I'm the apprentice. We love trees.
Yeah, we do.
That's why we've got so many. Some are in pots, but most of them are planted in the ground. We chose a cedar especially. In fact, that's my favourite tree, just because of the form of it, how it splits into two. It's just a beautiful tree, but it still lets the light through.
Yeah. The honey locust.
Yeah,
That's very airy.
Yeah, beautiful colour, light canopy.
Yeah.
We've got about 65 trees in the back garden. Of them, this is one of the most beautiful ones. This is the Acer conspicum. These are the seeds. Stunning. The colour of them, the lime green. And the leaf, when they come out, when the new ones emerge, they've got a pink tinge around the edge of the leaves.
A lot of people think we're mad, don't they? Because every time we pull up in the car, there's a boot full of plants, trees.
We've started doing it in the dark now.
I often say trying to reverse up to the drive so we can open the boot in the dark. And that's not a lie. We did it the other day, didn't we?
Yeah.
This is my favourite tree. This is a Korean oak, Quercus dentata, Carl Ferris Miller. It's probably about 10 years old now, maybe 11. It would grow to be a huge tree, but we keep it contained in a pot, so it won't grow much wider than this, but it'll grow taller.
Our garden's called 50 Shades of Green for obvious reasons.
Yeah. We do love colour.
Yeah, we do love colour, especially green.
Yeah. Yeah, but we do use colour in different ways to probably normal gardeners would use it.
Yes, we've got coleus scattered about the garden to give colour,
Yeah.
because coleus will grow in the shade anyway.
Yeah. Lilies.
We have lilies.
Yeah, they grow in the shade.
They grow anyway.
Really well.
Yeah. They're a bit slower in coming out than if they was in the sun.
But they do come out.
Yeah.
And they stay fresher for longer as well because they're in the shade.
This is my favourite part of the garden. We decided to get rid of the shed. We thought we've got 4 metres square there of potential planting. I got to pick my plants, what I wanted to put in there. I had permission. So I put a nice tetrapanax in there, which I'd always wanted to put in the garden, but didn't have the space. I'm really looking forward to seeing that develop. There's a couple of new bananas in there as well. And I built a new water feature. Really love our garden.
Yeah.
Just knowing that we've created all this ourselves as well.
And you know about the plants now?
Yeah, I do.
Which you didn't.
Yeah, but I do know a lot about the plants now.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing before, so
Yeah.
I'm really pleased about that. But you're definitely the head gardener. Boss.
We've still got plenty to come on today's programme. Carol continues her propagating masterclass to show us how to grow plants for free.
All the plants that we're propagating from leaves are really sort of woodland plants. They all grow in shade, so it's vital that they don't go into direct sun.
And Arit is creating a late summer container with Alan to keep the colour going well into October.
I've come to the Diamond Jubilee Wall Garden to meet garden coordinator Ian Roof, who has worked with Alan and Graham for many years, and he's discovered a botanical oddity. Ian, this is it. This is what you found then?
This is our bistorta, our persicaria, which has sported. It's produced some variegated shoots on a green plant, and it's something we're going to do something with later in the season. So, do you like it?
Well, I've got to be honest, I'm not normally a variegated girl, but this is actually quite delicate. I could actually, I mean, I love persicaria, but it's quite delicate, so I could get my head around this. So what will you do in order to be able to sort of keep the longevity of it going?
Well, because it probably won't come true from seed, like most variegated plants, this will need to be propagated either by cuttings or by dividing the rootstock. The important thing to remember is that all variegated plants you buy from garden centres and nurseries are clones of their parents. They're genetically the same material that's passed through in order to keep that colouring in the leaf. So we've got a bit of work to do, but I think it's got great potential.
Well, the pressure's on, because we'll be expecting to see this now, not only here, but hopefully in other gardens around the country.
And hopefully in yours.
Well, that would be really good. So come on, get it going.
So I'm just helping the volunteers here, going through the borders, deadheading, just to see if we can squeeze a little bit more out of the flowering season. While I finish this off, we're catching up with Carol, who's been very busy delving into the world of root and leaf cuttings to carry on that masterclass in providing plants for free.
I've been longing for you to see this bed and this sort of collection of wonderful plants. This is my plants for free bed. So all season I've been propagating all sorts of plants by many different methods. I've done division, I've taken cuttings, grown loads of stuff from seed. And one of the things I've grown from cuttings is this. I'm really quite proud of this, Nepeta, because it was tiny little basal cuttings. If I tip it out, can you see that's where the original cuttings were? And it's just made such a beautiful root ball now. And I know as soon as I put it in here, it's going to absolutely go for it. I'll be taking cuttings from my cuttings before you know where you are. Well, just over the other side of this bed, Some plants have popped up that I'd completely forgotten about. It's an anemone, but it's very fortuitous really, because it's going to help me to demonstrate how you can grow new plants for free from parts of the plant that you never ever dreamed of. Roots in that case, and also from leaves. This anemone in its native habitat is a woodland plant. It sends its roots out just under the surface of the soil, and it's that I want to exploit. From little slender roots like this, that's the ideal sort of size that you want those roots to make brand new plants. Now there are two kinds of root cuttings, and these I like to call horizontal. All along these roots there are nodules, and every so often up will come a brand new shoot, and that is going to make a whole separate clump. So we're going to exploit exactly what the plant does in nature and use it to our advantage. I'm going to cut it into sort of bite-sized pieces, just about 1 inch long. That's all you need. I'm just using a half seed tray. It's full of really good compost. Lots of extra grit. Always when you're trying to take cuttings of whatever kind, it's a good idea to incorporate more grit because it makes the whole mixture more open, more freely draining. I'm going to put them in a nice warm place, reasonably bright, but out of bright sunlight. Keep it reasonably well watered. As soon as you see new shoots coming up, hesitate. Wait another couple of weeks because the shoots will come up first and then the fibrous roots, the feeding roots, come later. So a couple of weeks after that, take them out individually, pot them on, and then keep growing them on and eventually put them out in your garden. Now, you might think from what I've been saying that the only plants you can propagate from root cuttings in this way are anemones. Not a bit of it. This geranium sanguineum will make the kind of roots that you can use for root cuttings, and you can make more geranium sanguineums from these roots in exactly the same way as you made the anemone. So those are all horizontal cuttings, but there are some completely different root cuttings you can take too. They're vertical cuttings. Instead of going across, they go up and down. So this is a very handsome acanthus. It's Acanthus spinosus, and it is really spiky. All I'm going to do is take these roots off. I'll go in like that. There are several plants you can do this from. Anchusa is one of my favourite, with those brilliant blue flowers and big thick roots. Verbascums, all those perennial verbascums, the Verbascum Chaixii, there are all sorts of gorgeous hybrids of them. So you want these cuttings to be maybe a little longer than the ones that were horizontal, maybe about inch and a half. The key bit of information that I haven't given you is that you should always plant these cuttings the right way up. And the right way up means exactly the way they grew in the ground. So always the bit that's closest to the soil is the top of the cutting, and the bottom of the cutting is always the bit that's going downwards. Now I'm pushing these straight down until they're completely flush. The top of the cuttings is flush with the compost. Then all that remains to do is put some grit on the top of them. A nice warm place out of brilliant sunshine. Make sure that they're reasonably well watered, and you'll have a whole load more acanthus plants. Another unexpected way of actually making more plants for free, leaf cuttings. Now it's very often used with house plants, begonias, streptocarpus, all these gorgeous things which are grown either for their foliage or for their delightful flowers. Fewer and fewer people have got their own gardens, and this is a way of bringing the outside inside and enjoying something green or very flowery. I want to start with this glorious begonia. This is a form of Begonia rex. This one's called Dark Eyes. What I'm after, what I want to select, is a leaf that's full grown, it's properly mature, but it's still fresh and young, like that. It's really important where you cut. All plants have the ability to change one kind of cells into another. In this case, we're hoping that leaf cells are actually going to become root cells and capable of producing new leaves too, so a whole new plant. And the hormones that actually help that process are concentrated where the veins meet the leaf. So I want to expose lots and lots of those veins and plunge those into some compost. If I actually turn it over, it's much easier to see where these veins are, much more clearly visible. Now I'm going to turn my board right round because I want to cut across this way now and make all these into squares. These cuttings have got to actually sit in the compost, but not too far. So I'm just using a plant label, it is, a bit of old oak, and I'm just going to make these little furrows. Now I'm working from the outside of the leaf, which means that the base of the cutting there is going to be the closest to that central midrib, because that's where the greatest concentration of those hormones is going to be. So make sure you keep your leaf in the same place whilst you're doing this. Don't go and answer the telephone in the middle. All the plants that we're propagating from leaves are really sort of woodland plants. They all grow in shade, so it's vital that they don't go into direct sun. And keep them moist but not wet. So this is what you're aiming for. This is one, though, that's been done by basically the same method, but this time using a whole half a leaf, cut just below the midrib and pushed in, inserted into the compost. But I like doing these individual pieces because then when you come to separate them and pot them up, they're much more easy to move. But either way, it doesn't matter. Depends how much time you've got. And it only takes a few weeks under ideal conditions. If you've got one of those propagators with a little top on it, then all the better because it'll keep in that moisture. Isn't that just absolutely beautiful? It's a streptocarpus called polka dot purple. Now, my mum loved streptocarpus and she was always propagating them. She did it in such a straightforward way, just taking a leaf, cutting it up in sections, but there's an even easier way, and that is to take a whole leaf and just divide it in two, leaving the midrib in the middle. So you've got two equal slices and then just inserting them into the compost. Little plants will start to form. Once you feel they're big enough to handle and you've got several of them along there, you can take them out, detach them very carefully from the big leaf, which by that time will have started to fizzle out, and pot them on individually. People talk about folk having green fingers. Well, I don't believe that. I think everybody's got green fingers. I think everybody can propagate plants. After a whole season of propagating plants for free, that growing cycle comes full circle. In the spring, we started sowing seeds, but next time we're going to be collecting them from some of the plants that bring us so much joy in the garden.
Maintaining the borders at the old vicarage is a monumental task. I'm out with some of the volunteers that come to help each week, and on top of discovering botanical rarities, Ian also manages this team.
You know, I think I've just walked in to my favourite part of the garden.
Yeah, I can see why you love it. It really is a good space.
But interestingly, this is a huge garden that doesn't seem to be looked after by a huge amount of people.
No, it's not actually. I mean, we don't have many full-time staff. There's actually one full-time gardener, but I run a freelance team that comes in regularly, and I run a team of volunteers as well.
So what are we doing here then?
Well, we're going to take back some of this fennel. We're going to thin it out. We love self-seeders here. We love the fennel. We love all the other plants that seed about, but they can get a bit too heavy sometimes, and the fennel in particular can go from being a lovely mist into a thicker fog.
It's about just going out there, paying attention, and there's a right moment, and it's about balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, we better get on with this.
Get it trimmed back.
Yeah. All right. I think that one there, is that the lot?
Small one here. I think we're good.
Hello, Alison.
Hiya.
So what are you doing? Just trying to add a bit of light colour to the border?
That's right, so that the gardens look good right up until October. Yeah.
And I suppose as well, I mean, if we're sort of adding tender perennials to the garden, most people will be thinking, why are we doing it this late? But actually for you, your weather will roll on, won't it?
Exactly. It's really important that the gardens go on looking really great.
It seems the volunteers do play a huge part in the garden here.
I think so, but I'd be biased, wouldn't I?
No, I think just talking to sort of Ian and whatever, I think, you know, things would struggle without them.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long have you been here volunteering?
Oh, it's getting on for 2 years now.
Yeah.
I've always had gardens.
Yeah.
So this is just such a magical opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it is a magical place.
It's such a privilege to be here all the year round.
So you're telling me you're even here on the days when that wind comes from the east?
Absolutely.
I take my hat off to you. Josh, it seems like we've been sent to tackle a never-ending job. Is that right?
Indeed.
You got mare's tail all the way through here.
Yeah.
Which is a real pernicious weed. People get this in their gardens at home and
That's right.
panic.
All we can really do is just to get rid and lift up as much as we can. Unfortunately, this is pretty much going to be more or less like a job, just permanent job for life.
Like painting a fourth bridge.
Yeah.
You just finish and you start again. So literally all we're doing is constantly lifting it, and then that's going to weaken the plants. I suppose as well, this is a job you do little and often rather than trying to do too much at once.
Yeah, it's a big garden all to itself.
So how long have you been volunteering here?
It's been around, I want to say, 10 months.
So do you think now, is it something that you would quite like to do for a career, or?
If anything, I'd like to eventually be part of an established gardening team, especially after my experience here.
Yeah. That's brilliant, mate. It's brilliant. So we could come back here in years to come, and you could be running the place.
I mean, who knows? Like, that would be a dream all to itself.
Exactly. Yeah. We won't tell Ian at the moment, eh? You know.
Across the garden, there are over 10 miles of hedges that need to be cared for, as well as some impressive topiary.
There is loads of hedge cutting going on around this place, and it's the right time of year, September. Topiary, there also seems quite a lot of that, and from what I understand, you're the man.
Well, I certainly do an awful lot of it, yes. It starts early in the spring. We'll spend the winter months crown raising, shaping trees, which I really enjoy as well. So you've always got a pair of cutters or a saw or the shears in your hand for 12 months a year.
So how did you get involved?
I volunteered about 7 years ago and quickly established that I'm rubbish at weeding, which I thought was a good move. But having done, 50 odd years hairdressing, I swapped my scissors for a pair of shears, and I love it.
Be honest with me though, when you were clipping away, are you asking them what they're doing for the weekend or any nice holidays coming up?
Absolutely, but the advantage is they don't talk back.
So no, in a sense, everything gets a short back and sides?
Absolutely, yeah.
Brilliant. I'll leave you to it.
Nice to see you.
And you.
Alan, here's some more of your pelargoniums.
No, thank you very much.
Just pop
Actually,
them
I think
here.
we were fairly lucky to get those at this time of the year, because normally they'd finish by now.
I must say to you, the containers across this garden are phenomenal. The amount, number one, but they are planted so beautifully. You must have containers for every aspect.
Oh, yeah.
In the
I
garden.
mean, north, south, east, west, and then, you know, then some.
Yeah, yeah. Guess it starts with the compost. I'm
Yeah, the
intrigued.
compost, and then we make that ourselves. It's actually made of green waste. And what I also add to that, here comes Gray's list of secret ingredients. Never waste a molehill. Gather up your molehills, and I mix it in with this.
OK. I don't have molehills, so I could use this cologne-based compost instead.
Exactly, equally
Okay.
as good.
Yeah, yeah.
Put half your green waste in there,
Yeah.
half molehill, and then I scatter my bits and pieces on. You can see that there's vermiculite in here.
Yeah.
And then there is a scattering of blood, fish and bone, which is a wonderful organic fertiliser, as you know. And the last one of all is wood ash.
Ah.
And wood ash also is quite a good deterrent from the escargot.
Ah, l'escargot, and we know about l'escargot.
Right, well, today I'm going to be using this little butylon here, which is beautiful orange colour, lovely red throat there. I hope when I've grown it for a year, it will sort of kind of open up and smile a little bit, because to me it's a little bit tight and a bit nipped up.
Yeah. Well, so that is your sort of main star plant that's going to be in here.
Yeah.
So what we can start with?
The salvia, I think.
Yeah.
Do you see these lovely red flowers here?
Yes.
Well, when the red flowers are gone, you've got these calyx that are left behind, look. So you've still got a bit of decoration. Calyx lasts longer and longer. And when I put this in here, once it's sort of got its roots free, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scrunch this up.
Because this obviously looks quite brutal, but really it's stimulating the roots, isn't it?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Which will make it go out into this lovely soil mix I've made. And every little node here is going to produce a new shoot. And this will take us right the way through until the end of the season.
See, this is it. This is all about longevity for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And
Yeah,
not
it is.
never putting that garden to bed. God.
It's an anathema, dear.
How could I ever say something so awful?
Well, it's what people used to do, because, you know, you used to think you get to the end of September, Jack Frost would come knocking and, you know, your bedding plants would get frosted.
That's it.
Today they don't.
Well, of course, and also as well, you've got a nice mix of perennials as well that are in here, so that kind of will keep things going.
This plant is Ageratum petiolatum, and I'm going to put this next to the salvia. Well, here we have Helichrysum petiolatum. This late in the season, I'm going to plant it on the back edge here.
OK.
And that will allow some to trail over. But what I'll do is I'll train some of these
Ah, nice.
so they then come out the top. I think we have a bit of contrast. Let's have that Persian shield on the end there, shall we?
Oh, look at that leaf.
I mean, isn't that amazing? Shall we have that plectranthus on the end there?
OK.
Foliage always lasts longer than flowers. So, you know, flowers are ephemeral. They can go over fairly quickly. But foliage is important. And this plant here in particular will make a great rush of foliage that falls over the edge there. Tradescantia maiden's blush. So this is Granny's windowsill plant, I call it. Because she had that when I was growing up. Now, shall we have some of those pelargoniums?
Shall we? Come on.
It seems a shame not to
Let's
use
treat
them, doesn't
ourselves.
it?
Yeah, I love that now, because now it's talking to the butylon.
And this is an oxalis. I think that the one colour enlivens any group of planting is lime green.
Yeah, so, because these are complementary colours, they're on the other side of the colour wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get that real sort of zing, they play off
and
each
you've got
other.
some nice red stems, pinky red stems in there as well. In shade, that would be perfectly lime green. But here, it'll get some sun and it'll be absolutely lovely, and that is my pot.
There you go. All done, looking great. But the onward care is the key bit, isn't it? What do you do?
With a container this size, I water it every other day, because everything is jammed together. They're going to use the nutrients very quickly. And it's fed at every watering, but at half strength.
OK.
Probably somebody's going to shoot me down on this, but my theory is that if this pot has access to nutrients on a continuous basis, it's going to continue to grow. If it doesn't, it may go stop, start a little bit. And I don't want that. So I want to keep it going for the rest of the season. And I think this will happily take me right the way through until the end of October when the garden shuts and beyond.
Oh, I'd love to come back and see it.
Open invitation, Arit.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping for, really.
It's incredibly difficult to walk from A to B in this place without something stopping you in your tracks. Look, I've seen that done with auriculas, also pelargonians, that idea of a theatre, but never with begonias. That's something. But also you need to look at this. Now, this is what I call a potting shed. So, I'll put these tools away. Here's a few jobs you could be doing at the weekend. Autumn is a key time for dividing plants, and we're moving this hardy geranium to a different spot. Cut off all the top growth. This may look drastic, but trust me, it will help. Dig up the plant, taking care not to damage the roots too much. Then, using 2 forks back to back, split the clump into 2. Move it to its new home, making sure it's planted at the same depth as before. And keep watering over the next few weeks, especially if the weather turns dry.
Agapanthus seed heads can look rather attractive in a border, adding an extra layer of interest as they turn brown. But in a mild winter, they can become prolific self-seeders, and named varieties won't come true from seed. If you want to avoid this, cut each stem right back to the base. Once you've done, gather them up and add them to your compost bin.
Apples are starting to ripen now, and while the timing of this will depend on where you live and the variety you're growing, it's worth keeping an eye on their progress. Hold each one in the palm of your hand, and without applying any pressure, just gently twist. If it comes away easily with the stalk still intact, your apples are ready to pick.
What an incredible day.
I have absolutely loved it. Just fantastic, so good.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I'm afraid that is it from us this week.
We have to say a huge thank you to Alan and Graham and all the volunteers for inviting us into the garden.
But next week, Monty will be back at Longmeadow, slightly later time of 9 o'clock. But from Norfolk, bye-bye.
Bye.